Eskom wants to sell the Kusile housing project in Mpumalanga. The power utility is negotiating with the Human Settlements Department to purchase the abandoned block of flats. Eskom spent more than 800 million rand on the development that started with a budget of 160 million rand in 2008. The project was meant to house construction workers at the power station, but 12 years later, it lies abandoned. For more on this story, let's bring in Siphetfo Dlamini. I apologize. Siphetfo Kunene, live for us there. Siphetfo, thank you very much indeed for your time. So give us the reasons why, 12 years on, it's unfinished.
Eskom has decided to sell this block of flats to human settlement because it could no longer take the burden of the money that is supposed to pay to maintain the flats, and the fact that there was no one to occupy them anymore because it was built for those that were working at Kusile power station. Now that the project is almost finished and they have never been occupied, it doesn't make sense for Eskom to keep pouring money in there. Therefore, the negotiations we are told by the spokesperson that they are at an advanced stage of having that. With me here is a political analyst from Mpumalanga, Siphetfo Dlamini. Now, Siphetfo, Eskom is but one of SOEs that the government is leading that are not performing well. Looking at the speech tonight, the SONA, what can you expect from the president?
Thank you very much, Siphetfo. I think one of the most important areas of focus that the president should actually look at, of course, is the role of SMEs. But what is important is to do a follow-up on the previous SONA that he basically tabled in Parliament to say now, given that we have these challenges in South Africa, particularly with regards to these entities that contribute tremendously towards South Africa's economic growth, what then is the next step, particularly in terms of ethical leadership and the role of Chapter 9 institutions as they play a critical role in ensuring that democracy is basically well implemented in South Africa and accountability. And so we should expect President Cyril Ramaphosa to give us a detailed account of how these different institutions, particularly the SOEs, will find themselves participating and having teeth in some of these areas, such as, the different challenges that are being brought up by Eskom, as you say.
Now, we're also looking into things like the vaccine that was brought into the country that can no longer be used to fight against COVID-19, but it can be used for other diseases, of course. What can we expect on that front?
I think you are very much correct there, and of course it wouldn't be a complete SONA without any touching on the issues of the vaccine. You will remember that there are also challenges of some of these vaccines that are thought of as expiring in April. Now there's quite a number of institutions and unions that have raised concern about this and interpreted that as wasteful expenditure. We do expect, therefore, President Cyril Ramaphosa to give us also, a way in which that is going to pave way on the execution and distribution of these vaccines. As you will know, that many South Africans are basically concerned about this. But above all, I think one should note that there's a procurement aspect as well that needs to be addressed today at 7 p.m. in the SONA. And therefore, it is more than just a vaccine coming to South Africa. The how part becomes critical. The expenditures, the wasteful expenditures, and how exactly this will contribute towards benefiting South Africans at large would be an expectation from President Cyril Ramaphosa today.
Now, South Africa has experienced heavy rains. We understand that the government already has a very heavy load when it comes to fighting and delivering services. Now they're going to need to fix all that is happening in provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo and Mpumalanga. Do you think the president will touch onto that? Because these provinces that I'm talking about will be submitting to national government so that there's money released so that they deal with this disaster.
Absolutely. I think one should highlight the fact that the president is expected to hide under the COVID-19 pandemic and try to divert and not necessarily answer those questions. particularly when it comes to disaster management and the floods that have been taking place around the different provinces. However, we should have hope in the sense that there's quite a number of other areas, such as social support, that South Africa is basically running behind. I mean, if you look at the queues in Home Affairs, they are just out of shape, and it is important for the president not to specifically dwell on COVID-19 issues, vaccines and all that. He must basically find a way of giving us a roadmap on how such disasters and funds to be allocated to such will be dealt with going forward.
The country is currently divided. As a political analyst, what do you think now former President Zuma in Nkandla has his supporters? There are supporters that are supporting the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa. We've seen it on social media. People are out and about. They're going to town with that. What can we expect on that front?
South Africa has always been a divided society, but of course one did not expect that it would come to this far. But you see, especially with regards to former President Zuma's refusal to appear to the Zondo Commission, that has got serious implications, not to him specifically as an individual, but to the party itself. So the ANC must find itself coming together, trying to find significant points of convergence and how specifically they're going to be dealing with issues of factionalism. You will remember that this is what I'll always refer to as South Africa going through what I call personal problems. It is more than just the Zuma issue and the Zondo Commission, of course. The factions will have detrimental effects on social services, service delivery, and generally will affect the way in which government will operate, because you'll understand that much of the responsibility of implementing government business has to come within the administration. Now, those specific factions within the ruling party especially will be detrimental towards such, and therefore President Cyril Ramaphosa would therefore be expected to touch a little bit on some of these issues, on how exactly do we find significant ways of bringing back the country and closing the gaps of factionalism, both within the political party which is ruling currently and society at large.
Let's deal with this very last question. There's a wide gap between the rich and the poor in the country. Those that are rich are very rich. Those that are poor are very poor. And that has resulted in social unrest in many aspects. Do you think that will also be addressed somehow?
You see, Siphetfo, I think addressing it is a different issue. What matters the most is how exactly is it going to find itself getting implemented after the address. You have noticed that indeed the gap is widening between the rich and the poor, and that brings me to one area of focus to which Cyril Ramaphosa must basically focus on, and that is the recovery plan, the economic recovery plan. However, it's more than just that. You'll remember that the recovery plan was tabled, but what's important is now the execution part. How then do we bring economists? How do we bring government personnel to come together to find a way of closing this gap? But I must say that let us expect that gap to widen, especially if there isn't going to be much done. People have become really frustrated with some of these speeches to which they have become monotonous in nature, and they have really found themselves losing hope in such. But of course, you can't necessarily, fog a baboon because it is ugly, because you will find yourself killing it eventually. And therefore what I'm saying basically is that South Africans should remain hopeful, even though it is unfortunate that some of the activities done within the state are really making South Africans to lose their hope, and such hope is disappearing slowly and gradually to oblivion.
Thank you so much. That was Siphetfo Dlamini, a political analyst based in Mpumalanga, saying that all the challenges that are in South Africa that we are witnessing these days are supposed to be addressed by the president in his speech tonight when he addresses the nation about the state of the country, and people should remain hopeful.
Siphetfo, just one more point of clarity with regards to this housing project. Over 10 years later, has it been fully completed as yet or not?
Blaine, when you get there, you get a shock of your life. That place is not maintained at all. There is no upkeep at that place. People are doing everything that you can imagine. The flats in there, people are getting in and taking out whatever they can to benefit themselves. And they are falling apart already because the roof in some places is caving in because of the fact that there is no proper maintenance. You remember, Blaine, that Eskom said they stopped putting money into that project in 2019, and Eskom spokesperson said that was 10 years of spending money in there. That money was over 840 million already when the project had started, for only 160 million rand, and it was meant for those that were building Kusile power station. In 2019, when they discovered that this will not serve the purpose that it was established for, then it won't work, then they decided to pull off all the funds that they were pumping in there just so that the project can stand, rising it in daylight. And there's a security company that's supposed to be manning that place, but we got in there without any security guard. We took our visuals, we did all we had to do there, and there was no security guard coming towards us, maybe to tell us to go away or just to see that the place is well kept. Therefore, if they are successful in selling it to human settlements, they still need to fix a lot, and in that way, that's when they can make their money, because property normally appreciates, but if it's not well kept, it's quite impossible to have it appreciating, Blaine.
All right, Siphetfo and Frank, we thank you very much indeed for your reporting.